Hi, I'm Dr. Lena Luck, and tonight we are going to cover judging hunter hack, working hunter, and jumper classes. And so a little bit about me and my background and why I think this is something that I'm really interested in. I have shown hunter jumpers since I was a small child, and it's definitely an area that I have a lot of expertise in and I'm very interested in. But I've also done quite a bit in other areas and horse judging and things like that. So hopefully you will get some good information out of tonight. So we're going to start with working hunter. And you would think, well, maybe we should start with hunter hack. But the reason I want to cover working hunter first is I'm going to go through how working hunter is judged. And then the jumping or fence portion of hunter hack is judged the same as working hunter. So working hunter is a representative of the type of horse used in a hunt field that should possess manners, jumping ability, style, pace, and quality. And the working hunter must be able to demonstrate his ability to furnish the rider with a smooth, comfortable, and safe ride. So the way I like to think of it is a really fancy, well-trained working hunter horse looks like they are out in a field cantering over, like a brick wall or things like you would think if they're out hunting, and they're doing it effortlessly and easy, and they're not getting overly exerted or overly excited. They're just doing it nice and relaxed, and they're doing it with good quality jumping and a nice pace that keeps them have momentum, have their butt underneath them, they keep going, those kinds of things. So here's just a little quick video. Just to kind of get just to look at a nice hunter horse doing the working hunters. He has a nice, pretty smooth, even pace. He's not going super slow, but he's also not going super fast. Just kind of a nice working hunter pace. It's nice and rounded over the jumps. He maintains the same pace throughout and is consistent. So you can kind of get just an idea. This is kind of like, ideally we want like a nice hunter that just goes around nice and smooth, has that nice hunt pace, has a nice rounding of its body over the jumps. So some things it's judged on is manners, the way of going, the style of jumping, that they maintain an even hunting pace, they have a nice free-flowing stride, and then good quality over the jumps. So manners, so similar to how we would judge our Western Pleasure or our Hunter Under Saddle, and you're looking at the manners of your horse and how broke they are, that is also important in working hunter. You want the horse that is the brokest, most consistent throughout the entire fence course. It has a nice way of going, so a high quality of movement, goes around nice and smooth, keeps an even pace. Style of jumping, ideally they jump nice and round with their body. They're really nice and even with their front legs. You can see here in this picture, the horse is really even with his knees. They should be nice and flat and square and even. They shouldn't have one leg that's lower, one leg that's higher, and those kinds of things. So those are all kind of important things you're going to be looking at. So then pace. The ideal pace is going to be consistent and the same throughout the entire course. So it doesn't speed up, it doesn't slow down, it maintains the same even speed throughout. And ideally, a hunter horse should be moving on a 12-foot stride. So a nice, even 12-foot stride consistently throughout the entire course. So you don't want to have excessive speed, erratic speed, extremely slow speed. should be penalized. And one place that is most common that you're going to see these issues is when they jump in the first jump and they either have to speed up or slow down in between the two fences in a line because they have to adjust and they don't have their horse set on a nice even 12-foot stride, and so then they have to make adjustments there. Or the horse lands and kind of takes off after the jumps. That's also a place you see, or something you see quite often, which should be penalized. Ideally, it should be the same. So the stride length. So we want to think about between the jumps. So in a line, that means there's at least two jumps in a row, that they need to take a certain number of steps. And so when designing a fence course, you would have the order that the jumps are in, but then you also are going to have how many strides are within a line. And so a horse should be moving on a 12-foot stride. So we base all of these number of strides in the line based on this 12-foot stride. And so you're going to say 6 feet for takeoff from the jump and landing. So I'll draw like a little picture here. We'll see. Okay, that's well, never mind. So they would have two jumps in a line, and you wanted to say there's 6 feet after the first jump is their landing, so you don't count that in. And then they're going to take however many strides, and then they're going to have another 6 feet for their takeoff to the second jump in the line. So if you have a 60-foot between the two jumps, you're going to have 6 feet of that is the landing for the first jump, and then you would have 4 strides, 4 12-foot strides, and then you're going to have another 6 feet for that takeoff. So you're going to have 48 feet is those 4 strides in the middle, and your 6 feet and your 6 feet takeoff and landing to equal 4 strides. So if you have a 72-foot line, then you're going to have 5 strides with a takeoff and landing. And so eliminating strides or adding strides, that's going to be heavily penalized. So that would be like if you have a jump here and you have a jump here. So this right here, this is your landing area where you have your 6 feet. And then you're going to have your, I can't draw 4 strides. And then you have your 6 foot right in here for your takeoff. Okay. Also, in a working hunter course, they're going to have multiple lines. So it's not just one line, which is what we're going to talk about when we get to hunter hack, but you're going to have multiple. And so a horse ideally needs to maintain the correct lead throughout the course. And so they either need to do flying lead changes after the jumps to get onto the correct lead prior to that first corner, or they need to just land on the correct lead after the jumps. So a lot of horses are going to change leads over the fences, and then there's no penalization for that. That's good. Or they need to change leads before they reach the first corner after a line, or in that corner. But once they've turned that corner, if they haven't changed leads, then you're going to penalize them for being on the counter canter or the incorrect lead. Also, if they cross canter, that is going to be penalized. Or then swapping leads right in front of a jump is also something you would penalize. So now if they take the first jump in the line and they change leads there and go down the line, so they change it in the middle, that's okay. What's not okay is if they jump that first jump, canter 2 strides, change leads, canter 2 more strides and jump the jump. That would be something you don't want because you don't want them changing leads in the middle of a line. However, if they jump the first jump and they change leads over the jump and then they continue on that lead down the line, that is not going to be penalized. So then quality of the jump is also going to be important and something that's looked at. And so ideally, a horse should show some athletic ability. It's going to push itself off its hind end. It's going to round its back, lower its head and neck, and get like a really nice rounded look, raising its knees above the horizontal with nice square, tight knees that are together, and that nice arched body. And also, the quality of the jump, you ideally want them to be directly in the middle between the 2 standards. So when you're looking at a jump, you have like your not the best artist here. So you have your jump. This is called your standards, and then your poles usually down the middle, and ideally you want your horse to travel directly down the center between the 2. And if they do that, then that is going to be ideal. If they jump over to one side, that is going to be penalized because they're not traveling down the center of the line. So another thing in a working hunter class is when they enter the arena, usually they're going to do a circle, or they're at least, if the first fence is at the opposite end of the arena, they're going to trot down one side or across, but they're going to trot some at the beginning of the course. And at that point, as a judge, you should be checking for soundness, and then penalizing if the horse is not sound. So here's some ideas of score ranges to help you with kind of having an overall place. So working hunter is judged on a scale of 0 to 100. Usually a 70 is kind of average or good, and then it goes up from there or down from there. So at a 70, you have a good jumper, good mover, minor faults, or you may have a good jumper but a poor mover but has a pretty decent course, you know, without fault. Or you may have a poor jumper, so they really don't have the best form, but they're a really good mover and they go throughout the course without fault. And then you don't want to go above 75. And then you may have a poor jumper, poor mover, but they have a pretty nice course. Then you're going to be in around that 70 range. And then you want to go up from there, and you will have your 80s where you have pretty excellent jumper and mover, minor faults, good jumper, excellent mover, minor faults, and then a 90s, which is pretty high in working hunter to get in the 90s. I would say most really good horses are going to be in the 80s, and then your really exceptional horses are in the 90s. And so excellent jumper, excellent mover, no faults are in the 90s. Then you have in your 60 range, they're going to have some major errors occur on the course. And then if they have frequent errors, you know, counter canter on the end of the ring, cross canter for a period of strides or more, swapping their leads in the lines, trotting on the course or break of gait. They're extremely long, so like their takeoff for the jump, instead of being, you know, that nice 6 foot on each side is ideal. If they take off really far from the jump, we consider that long. And or chipping is when they take off really close to the jump. But either way, when they take off really long or really close, it messes up the rest of the line because it's going to make them land. If they take off really long, they land usually really close on the other side of the jump. If they take off and they chip, they land further away. And those things are going to mess up those distances, so they should be penalized. In the 50 range, very poor trip. Usually they have trotting. A lot of times we like to say gas jump. So you're watching on course and you go, ugh! Anytime you do that, they should not get above a 50 or above you know, a 60 if they say, if you go at any point. If they add strides in the lines or they knock down a rail, so they knock a pole over, those are all going to be in that 50 range. A 40 and below is usually a refusal. So you automatically are going to give them a 40 if their horse refuses. So this means if their horse goes up to the jump and stops, or the horse puts in an extra circle somewhere in the course, that's considered a refusal. Or if they just go around the jump, that's also considered a refusal, and all of those are going to put you at a 40. Then if they have a second refusal, it's going to be a 30. Any more than that, they will be eliminated. I will say some judges for a knockdown, so knocking down a rail, are going to be worse than a 50. They may give a 40. A lot of times maybe a 45 automatically for knocking a rail. So that's something to consider. And it's somewhat, this is just a scale. And some judges are going to have some preferences or slight differences in where they give that score. If you go off course, going to be eliminated. If there's a fall of the horse and rider, or if there's a legal tack, those kinds of things are all up for elimination. And so here's some point deductions or some things to think of that you can use as guides for deciding, to help you with scoring. So a poor maneuver, if you start your score automatically at the beginning, you're thinking they come in and they're like a 70 to start with, and then they come in and they're a poor mover, then you may not want to start them at a 70. Instead, you may thinking, I'm going to start you at a 60. And then if you do really well on your course, you may move up to a 70. But you're going to start at a 60 because the horse already starts off as a really poor mover. Or you may have like a fair mover who you come in and say you're going to start them at a 65 instead of a 70. Or if you have a good mover, a decent mover, you're going to start them right there at a 70. So that's just, they come in, they're cantering around, you can make that decision where to start. If they're an excellent mover, you may want to give them points. So you may want to start them at a 73 or 75, just kind of depends. Or you may want to add points if they come in and they just, like that gray horse we saw that was super consistent, maintained the same speed, was really nice and round, had a nice bascule, which is the roundness of their back over the jump is called bascule. And that is ideal. Like a horse that jumps really flat is not ideal. And that you're gonna take off points, or you're not gonna give them points. They're gonna remain pretty, 70-ish or below if they jump really flat and don't have that nice arch to their body. If they're inconsistent or erratic and around, you might deduct 1 to 3 points. Most judges in this are going to develop kind of, one thing I would do is similar to your score sheets for your like reining and horsemanship and all of those where you have your score sheets. You want to do that same thing for working hunter or your hunter hack. But instead of having, maneuvers, you have the different jumps as what you're looking at. And then at the jumps, you want to make notes of how they jumped those jumps. Was it nice and round and great? And if so, then you may want to, here's a symbol for like a really good jump, so like jump 1, and then let's say jump 2, they were really flat, the horse didn't have much roundness. A lot of times we'll draw like a straight line. The third jump, they came up to it and they chipped, and so you might do like, there's the little chip to show that they chipped. Some other, they came up and they didn't have a nice long, round 12-foot. They were kind of tight with their body. Wasn't necessarily like a little chip, but just a little, it was close. Like they weren't, it wasn't as nice. So you could use this symbol. And I would say most judges have kind of developed symbols, but these are some of the common ones that you'll see that kind of give you an idea of what the jump looked like. And then, so like with this, you may want to give them, plus, a few points. If the whole course had, nice, like all the jumps are nice on all of them, then these you're going to give a higher score. Whereas if you have these chips, or it was tight, or you had like these long jumps where the horse was really flat, those kinds of things are going to lead to deductions in that score. And so keeping track of that, and then as you go along, adding and subtracting from that 70 for those types of things will help you at the end come up with a score. So I'm going to go on. I will let you all watch those later. So then moving on to Hunter Hack. So Hunter Hack, you're going to judge it very similar to how you judge your working hunter. So you're going to have 70% of your score is based on that fence work. So those 2 jumps, it's usually 2 jumps. They come in, they jump the 2 jumps, usually have to maybe hand gallop or stop and back. Those kinds of things can be in that Hunter Hack course. And 70% of their score is going to come from that. Then 30% of their score is going to come from the rail work, and they should go both directions of the arena at a walk, trot, and canter. If they back in the Hunter Hack course, then they don't necessarily need to back on the rail. However, if they don't back during the Hunter Hack course, they should back during the rail work portion. And this scoring is similar to how it is in Working Hunter. So 0 to 100, 90 to 100, excellent. Your 80 to 89 is good. Your 70 to 79 is average. 60 to 69 is poor. And 59 and below, they had some kind of major fault. And the same if they have a refusal, those kinds of things in that 40s, 30s, eliminated kind of thing. But again, they're going to come in, you're going to look at their movement, and that's going to say, oh, this horse is a really great mover. You may start them at a 75, or they may come in and they're a really awful mover. They just have really erratic movements. Their horse is jerky. Their horse is inconsistent with their speed and pace. You might start them at a 65, and then it might get better. They might go down the line, jump the 2 jumps, have the correct number of strides where you don't need to subtract for adding a stride or taking away a stride. And they could go up, or they may get worse in that case. So that is kind of a roundabout way of judging Hunter Hack, but the same, if you are putting together your score sheet, I would do the same thing where you have jump 1, jump 2, and then if they have to stop and back on your score sheet. So you set it up, you have these 2, and then all your horses down here that come in the class. And then leave yourself room that you could write some comments in here, and then you would have your rail work, and you can then give your overall total score at the end. So this is kind of a good way to set it up. And so you may come in and you're like thinking, a lot of times I like to give them a score at the very beginning. So let's say I come in, I'm like, oh, they're decent, they're okay, they're pretty average. I'm gonna start with a 70. And then I'm like, oh, it was a good jump. And then they get the correct number of strides. So, I don't make any comments there. And then this jump was a little flat. And so then here I'm thinking, this was good and plusable, and they have the correct number of strides. So I'm thinking, maybe like a 75. And then here they were really long at the second jump. And so, which made them also have to speed up. So they get a little faster at the end. So coming around to their stop and back. And then their stop and back was, it was good. It was a plus, consistent. So, but I'm going to minus them here, and I was thinking 75. So now I'm thinking back to a 70. So then coming into their rail work, I'm thinking a 70. And then they do their rail work, and they're pretty consistent. They're a decent mover because I thought they were average before. They don't have any major faults. And so I decide for my total to keep them at a 70. And so then you would do all your exhibitors the same way, but this kind of gives you an idea of how to go through scoring that class. So next I was going to go into talking about your jumper classes. And so jumper classes, or jumping, are a timed event and I will say that it kind of depends on the association that you're showing in as to how the jumper portion is done. So in our AQHA, our quarter horse, our breed shows, the jumper classes usually consist of 2 phases. So they're going to have your first round that you go in, and if you're clear, meaning you don't knock over any rails, any poles, you don't have any refusals, anything like that, and you fall within the time allowed, then you would come back and do your jump off phase as the second phase. In other associations, potentially, there are different types of jumper classes. And so there are some that are going to be similar to this, where you do your first phase or your course, and then if you're clear, you exit the arena and you come back later and do your jump off. Some, you stay in the arena, they blow a whistle, and you immediately do your jump off. And then other classes are going to be speed classes only, where they're completely timed, so there is no jump off, so it's the fastest time and clear wins, rather than whereas with the 2 phases, if you're clear and within the time allowed, you come back and do the jump off, and then the fastest in the jump off wins. Another option is classes where you have to be closest to the optimal time, and so whoever is closest to the optimal time is going to be the winner. You also, again, still have to be clear, have no faults. So it's going to be scored on a mathematical basis based on faults and then speed and time. So anytime a horse has a knockdown, so if they knock a pole over or they knock the jump rail down, that equals 4 faults. If they have a disobedience, so that's any type of refusal. So they stop at the jump, they run around the jump, they add an extra circle, those kinds of things are going to be a disobedience, and those are also considered 4 faults. So the first round is going to be, a normal course, anywhere from, I would say, 8 to 12 fences is approximately the number of jumps in the first round. And then if you are clear, so you didn't knock over anything, you had 0 faults, and then you were within the time limit. They usually give you a time that you have to fit within, so you couldn't just go around like a hunter and super. A lot of times the time allowed is pretty lenient. It's some of the smaller height fence classes, whereas when you get higher, sometimes they get a little tighter, or at the level they get tighter. But anyways, and then your jump off is those same jumps going the same direction they were in the first round, but they could be in a different order. So instead of jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it might be jump 2, 5, 10, 3. That's your jump off. And then for the jump off, clean round ties only. So what that means is you need to be clean and fault free, and then the fastest time are going to place. So for the jump off, when you're setting that course, the height and spread of 50% of the obstacles. So in like our quarter horse type breed shows, for the jump off where you leave the arena and you come back, then usually they're going to raise the fences. And for the jump off. However, if you're in the breed shows and not in the breed shows, but in like the hunter jumper circuits, a lot of times the jumps don't change for the jump off. They're going to be exactly the same. And most of the time they're going to have them set as classes where you stay in the arena and you immediately do your jump off, where you don't have to leave, unless they're like a classic or some of the bigger classes where then they will have you come back. And then they may change the height of those fences for those. So it's a shortened course, not less than 50% of the original course. So the winner of the jumper class is going to be the horse that was clear and has the least number of faults, or least number of faults, and then fastest time. So disobediences are what these are. So refusals, stop in front of an obstacle, unless they stop and then they jump. And then we don't consider that a disobedience. So, and these disobediences are the same for your working hunter, your hunter hack, or your jumper classes. But in the jumper classes, you know, if they stop and then jump it, there's no fault in that. You don't care. If they're still under time, the optimal time, then they're good to go. Whereas in your working hunter, you're going to fault that because that is not consistent, not maintaining the same pace. So a run out, that's just running past the jump. Loss of forward movement. So if they stop somewhere in the course, that is considered a refusal. Even if they're 30 feet from the jump, if they come to a complete stop, that is considered a refusal or a disobedience. And then unnecessary circling. So one place that something to think about is in and out jumps. So that would be like these two jumps here in this course. So anywhere where the jumps are less than 36 feet between the two fences is considered an in and out. And a lot of times these will be labeled like 6A, 6B, or 7A, 7B. Rather than jump 6 and 7. And anytime that there's an in and out, so less than 36 feet, so 1 or 2 strides, then the horse, if they stop, so they're going this direction, if they jump the first one and then they stop right here, they can't just circle and come back and jump this second jump. They have to come back and jump both jumps again. So some things about elimination. After they've had 3 disobediences in our breed circuits, in your hunter jumper world, you only get 2 disobediences. Jumping an obstacle before it's reset. So if they knock it over, it's like an in and out, and they come and they're fixing it, and then you go and jump it, that is going to be a cause for elimination. Starting before the judge signals to proceed. Failure to enter the arena within 1 minute. They usually blow a whistle, and you have a minute to cross the start line. So failure to start the cross line within 45 seconds. Off course. So you don't do the orders in the prescribed order. So on here, you can see these numbers are different courses. And so the same color numbers go together. So like this one, you have fence 1, fence 2, and then they circle fence 3, 4, 5, 6 is that course. And then so on, you can see there's several different courses there. But if they don't do it in that correct order, that would be considered a reason for elimination. Deliberately addressing an obstacle. So this is your horse stops 20 feet away and you walk it up to the jump and you stop and let them smell it and look at it. And then you come back and jump the jump. Well, they stopped way back here, and here's the jump, and you walked them up, and they stopped again to look at it. That is considered deliberately addressing the obstacle, and that is not allowed. So here's some more videos that you can watch if you download the PowerPoint. And then also if you will fill out the survey at the end, or if you have any other questions, if you will contact me. Look, I am more than happy to give you more information, to go in a little more detail. I didn't want this to be too long, so I just tried to cover the basics, but I can give you more detail on judging these classes if you need it. So thank you for joining. I hope you have a good evening.